The Secrets of the Society Shapers is original content produced by free speech community building and knowledge sharing platform truthwillout.online, based on an article with the same title written and published by Mike King on his realhistorychannel.org website. Edward Bernays was one of those relatively unknown characters of history who, from behind the scenes, helped to shape American society and, by logical extension, the world in general, more so than any president could have. A nephew of the famed sex-mad quack Sigmund Fraud, Bernays understood the science or art of manufacturing public opinion better than anyone. During World War I, Woodrow Wilson called upon the services of the legendary ad man, who would later train women to become smokers by linking the dirty habit with the women's suffrage movement.
Bernays set out to experiment with the minds of the popular classes. His most dramatic experiment was to persuade women to smoke. At that time there was a taboo against women smoking, and one of his early clients, George Hill, the president of the American Tobacco Corporation, asked Bernays to find a way of breaking it. A. Brill was one of the first psychoanalysts in America, and for a large fee he told Bernays that cigarettes were a symbol of the penis and of male sexual power. He told Bernays that if he could find a way to connect cigarettes with the idea of challenging male power, then women would smoke, because then they would have their own penises. Every year, New York held an Easter Day parade to which thousands came, and Bernays decided to stage an event there. He persuaded a group of rich debutantes to hide cigarettes under their clothes. Then they should join the parade, and at a given signal from him, they were to light up the cigarettes dramatically. Bernays then informed the press that he had heard that a group of suffragettes were preparing to protest by lighting up what they called torches of freedom.
A symbol, women, young women, debutantes, smoking a cigarette in public with a phrase that means anybody who believes in this kind of equality pretty much has to support them in the ensuing debate about this, because torches of freedom. And so the next day, this was not just in all of the New York papers, it was across the United States and around the world. And from that point forward, the sale of cigarettes to women began to rise. He had made them socially acceptable.
He also trained many of us to crave bacon and eggs for breakfast.
Many years ago, our client was the Beachy Net Packing Company. We made a research and found out that the American public ate very light breakfasts of coffee, maybe a roll, and orange juice. We went to our physician, found that a heavy breakfast was sounder from the standpoint of health than a light breakfast, because the body loses energy during the night and needs it during the day. We asked the physician, after telling him why we were talking to him, would he be willing, at no cost, to write to 5,000 physicians and ask them whether their judgment was the same as his, confirmed his judgment. He said he would be glad to do it. We carried out a letter to 5,000 physicians. Obviously, all of them concurred that a heavy breakfast was better for the health of the American people than a light breakfast. That was publicized in the newspapers. Newspapers throughout the country had headlines saying 4,500 physicians urge heavy breakfast in order to improve health of American people. Many of them stated that bacon and eggs should be embodied with the breakfast, and as a result, the sale of bacon went up, and I still have a letter from Bartlett Arkell, president of Beachy Net Packing Company, telling me so.
Under Bernays' influence, the Wartime Committee on Public Information instantly and successfully transformed the public image of the cultured, peace-loving Germans into one of marauding, bloodthirsty, warmongering Huns. At the behest of his government paymasters, Bernays and his gang of society shapers got Americans to suddenly hating Germans. Reflecting upon his success with psychological manipulation during wartime, Bernays later described how the same tactics could be used to control the masses during peacetime. Bernays said, "There was one basic lesson I learned in the CPI, that efforts comparable to those applied by the CPI to affect the attitudes of the enemy, of neutrals, and people of this country could be applied with equal facility to peacetime pursuits." In other words, what could be done for a nation at war could be done for organizations and people in a nation at peace.
I decided that if you could use propaganda for war, you could certainly use it for peace.
In 1928, Bernays, in his book titled Propaganda, really let the cat out of the bag for us conspiracy theorists. The father of spin, as one biographer described him, wrote this: "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate the unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government which is the true ruling power of our country. If we understand the mechanism and motives of the group mind, it is now possible to control and regiment the masses according to our will without their knowing about it." Bernays knew what he was talking about because he himself was very, very close to the society shapers and culture creators who relied upon his evil expertise at manipulation. Bernays' words teach us, from direct knowledge, that the masses at large are like so many bits of malleable clay in the hands of the society shapers. Indeed, in the grand lobby of Rockefeller Center in New York, which houses the headquarters of the very Jewish NBC TV and radio network, a billboard with the images of famous historical personages of NBC News and TV shows actually reads, "NBC, shaping American culture since 1926, in the bottom right corner. So we know, by their own arrogant admission, that they do indeed shape society and create culture by getting the masses to passionately believe whatever the heck they bloody want them to perceive and believe, no matter how counterintuitive or absurd. Think modern art, or the Holocaust, or climate change, or man-on-man marriage, or choose your own gender, or social distancing, etc. That's the what of the matter. With that knowledge in mind, the remainder of this piece shall address the how of the phenomenon from a psychological/philosophical perspective. If you are an anti-conspiracy theorist who doubts that so many people, including those of high intelligence and accomplishment, can be so easily duped into believing this or that falsehood, then the following description of the society-shaping dynamic should, we hope, help you to understand that it's really not all that difficult to brainwash 85 to 90% of the public, which is really all that they need in order to move their agenda items forward. Think of society as a large ballroom floor full of people buzzing about from one end to the other. In each of the four corners of the room, four respected speakers with mighty bullhorns scream out false information from atop elevated platforms. Unbeknown to the staring masses, the big four, though seemingly situated far apart from one another, are actually all members of the same elite club and working in concert. They are part of a mafia-like network of society shapers who incestuously associate and often intermarry with other such high-end marketing mugs. In one corner, big news media, fake news, shouts out lies and half-truths to the credulous crowd circling around him, never mentioning certain inconvenient facts which could contradict the hidden agenda. And in another far corner, big academia, in also serious tones of gravitas, echoes and reinforces what big news is shouting. Smaller academia, colleges, high schools, middle schools, K-5 elementary schools, all follow the lead of big academia. From a third corner, big government, subtly or overtly backed by the threat of force, again shouts from the same script as his co-conspirators. And finally, in the fourth corner, with perhaps the loudest bullhorn of them all, big Hollywood, by way of cleverly embedded propaganda inserted into TV shows, movies and music, reaches the ears, hearts and empty minds of even the simplest dumbasses who neither finished high school, nor follow politics, nor watch the nightly news. By the time one of the unsuspecting and confused mob has finished a cycle of walking about from one end of the crowded floor to the other, his malleable mind will have been blasted, marinated and saturated in the most stupefying propaganda imaginable. Only Norman Normie won't realize that the room is steeped in fakery because he has never been exposed to an opposing viewpoint. And if he does happen to chance across an awakened activist with another opinion, he'd probably denounce him as an extremist or uneducated or a conspiracy theorist simply because he's never heard such an opinion before. And should that errant truther begin to red pill more than a few normies, the Big Four will inevitably unload their toxic cannon fire at him, thus cowering other active truthers and curious initiates into silent submission. And yet, in spite of being mind-raped from all four corners of deceit, the brainwashing of the people is not yet complete. One final critical reinforcement step has to occur, and the beauty of it, from the perspective of the society shapers above, is that this final stage of the process will happen all by itself. After having been prepped from all four corners, a target will inevitably hold a conversation with another unsuspecting boob about something that one or more of the four bullhorns had been blaring about. Maybe this talk will occur near a water cooler, or maybe over lunch in the building's cafeteria. Deprived and devoid of any alternative information or opinion, boob number one will inevitably repeat something that was blasted into his head. In response, boob number 2 and 3, etc., will all nod their empty heads in agreement. Here's a real-world example, which all of you have surely witnessed in real life, of how the reinforcement process worked to support the absurd fairy tale that was the official explanation behind 9/11 false flag. Now let's try one related to Corona mania. Notwithstanding our advanced intellects, we humans, regardless of IQs, educational levels or professional accomplishments, remain social animals by nature. In this respect, we are very similar in our core impulses to cows, sheep, lemmings, fish or birds. This type of peer-approved validation of our opinions, even more so than the original and deafening blare of the four bullhorns which created it, will not only mentally and emotionally seal the erroneous belief in concrete, but also automatically induce fear and loathing for the stray conspiracy theorist who dares to question it. That's how Bernays' grand game of mass deception and manufactured consensus works its black magic on the group mind. And so, my dear newbies and normies, now that you understand the philosophical underpinnings of the surprisingly simple secret of society shaping, ask yourself this question: how did I really come to know what I think I know? After the four bullhorns have numbed the people into stupor, their reinforcing conversational consensus with one another makes the brain damage permanent. The sheeple fallaciously reason that if everyone else has also independently arrived at a certain opinion and attitude as they have, then it must be correct. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment and subscribe to the channel. Our first critical milestone to reach is 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 viewing hours. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment and subscribe to the channel. Our first critical milestone to reach is 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 viewing hours.